The storm hit Montana harder than anyone expected. Rain pounded the Morrison farm like bullets from the sky. Lightning split the darkness every few seconds, followed by thunder that shook the old farmhouse windows. Jake Morrison stood at the kitchen window, watching his wheat field bend and twist in the wind. His wife Lisa sat at the table behind him, grading papers from her third-grade class. "Weather Service says it should pass by midnight," Lisa said without looking up from her work. She had been teaching at the local elementary school for 12 years and always brought work home. Jake nodded but kept watching the storm. Something felt different about this one. The lightning seemed too bright, too focused. The thunder came in patterns that did not match the flashes. He had seen many storms in his 35 years living in rural Montana, but this one made him uneasy. "I should check on the animals," Jake said, reaching for his rain jacket. "The barn is solid," Lisa reminded him. "You built it yourself." "The horses and cows will be fine," Jake smiled. His wife always knew how to calm his worries. He had worked as a paramedic for 15 years before they bought the farm. Saving lives in ambulances had taught him to trust his instincts, but Lisa's practical nature kept him grounded. A sound cut through the storm that made both of them freeze. It was not thunder or wind. It was a screaming whistle that grew louder and louder. Jake grabbed Lisa's hand and pulled her away from the window just as something massive crashed into their wheat field. The impact shook the entire house. Dishes fell from shelves, the lights flickered and went out. In the sudden darkness, Jake and Lisa held each other as the terrible sound faded into the steady drum of rain on the roof. "What was that?" Lisa whispered. Jake reached for the flashlight they kept in the kitchen drawer. "I don't know, maybe a plane." They put on their rain gear and stepped outside. The storm was already weakening, but the rain still fell hard. Jake swept his flashlight across the field and stopped. About 200 yards from the house, something large and dark sat in the middle of his wheat. It was not shaped like any aircraft he knew. "Should we call someone?" Lisa asked. Jake thought about it. The nearest neighbor was 5 miles away. The sheriff lived in town, 20 miles down muddy roads. If someone was hurt out there, they might not survive the wait. "Let me look first," he said. "If it's bad, we'll call for help." They walked carefully through the muddy field. The object became clearer as they got closer. It was not a plane or helicopter. The thing was about the size of a small house, made of some kind of smooth, dark material that seemed to absorb their flashlight beam. One side was torn open, revealing a soft blue glow from inside. "Jake," Lisa whispered, squeezing his arm. 3 figures lay in the mud near the opening. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with long, thin bodies. Their skin was pale blue-silver, and it seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. They wore simple, flowing clothes that looked like they were made of liquid metal. Their faces were longer than human faces, with large eyes that reflected the flashlight beam. "They're not human," Lisa said quietly. Jake knelt beside the nearest figure. It was clearly injured, with dark fluid leaking from wounds on its chest. But it was breathing, and when Jake touched its shoulder, the large eyes opened and focused on him. The world exploded inside Jake's mind. Images flooded his thoughts. He saw a beautiful world with crystal cities and silver trees. He saw ships in space, thousands of them, fleeing from something terrible. He saw war and destruction, planets burning, people dying. He felt the creature's fear, its pain, its desperate hope. The alien was talking to him, but not with words. It was putting thoughts directly into his mind. Jake understood that these beings were called Zephyrians, and they were refugees from a war that had destroyed their home. They had traveled across the galaxy, looking for a safe place to hide. Lisa gasped beside him. The alien was sharing its thoughts with her, too. She saw the creature's memories of its family, its love for its children, its terror of the enemy that had chased them across the stars. The Zephyrian lifted one long, thin hand and pointed to the damaged ship. More images filled their minds. Inside the ship were 3 young ones, barely more than babies, sleeping in special pods that kept them safe. The adult Zephyrians were dying from their injuries, but their children could survive if someone took care of them. Jake saw himself and Lisa in the alien's thoughts. He saw how the creature had watched them from space, studying their life on the farm. It had chosen them because they were kind, because they lived far from cities, because they could keep secrets. The Zephyrian had crashed on purpose, using the last of its ship's power to reach the Morrison farm. The alien's thoughts became weaker. It was dying, and so were its companions. But it had one final gift to share. Knowledge flowed into Jake and Lisa's minds. How to care for young Zephyrians, what they needed to eat, how they grew and learned. The alien showed them how to hide the children's true nature, how to make them look more human, how to protect them from those who would fear them. Lisa was crying now, overwhelmed by the alien's emotions. She felt its love for its children, its gratitude to her and Jake for accepting this impossible responsibility. The creature's last thoughts were of hope. Hope that its children would grow up safe and happy. Hope that they would bridge the gap between their species and humanity. The three Zephyrians died peacefully in the muddy field, their large eyes closing as their soft glow faded. Jake and Lisa sat in the rain, holding each other, trying to process what had just happened. The children, Lisa whispered. They found the 3 pods inside the ship. Each one was about the size of a human baby's crib, filled with soft, blue light. Through the transparent tops, they could see the young Zephyrians sleeping peacefully. They looked almost human, but their skin had the same pale blue-silver color as their parents, and their eyes were larger and more luminous. Jake carefully lifted the first pod while Lisa took the second. The third was lighter, probably the youngest. They carried their strange new family back to the farmhouse. As the storm finally ended and stars appeared in the clear sky, as they set the pods down in their living room, lights began flashing on the alien ship. Jake and Lisa watched through the window as the vessel glowed brighter and brighter, then vanished in a silent flash of light. Only a shallow crater remained in the wheat field, already filling with rainwater. "What have we done?" Lisa asked quietly. Jake looked at the 3 sleeping children in their pods. They were beautiful and innocent, orphaned by a war they had never known. These beings had powers beyond human understanding, but they were also just children who needed love and protection. "We've become parents," Jake said simply. Lisa smiled through her tears. They had tried for years to have children of their own, but it had never happened. Now, in the strangest possible way, they had a family. 3 children who would change their lives forever, and maybe change the world. As dawn broke over the Montana farm, Jake and Lisa Morrison began the most important job of their lives. They were no longer just a paramedic and a teacher living quietly in the country. They were now the guardians of Earth's future, protectors of 3 alien children who carried the hopes of 2 species in their sleeping minds. The pods hummed softly in the morning light, and the children slept on, dreaming of their new home among the humans who had already learned to love them. 2 years had passed since that stormy night changed everything. Jake Morrison stood in his kitchen, making breakfast for his 3 children. To anyone watching, they looked like a normal family. Alex, Maya, and Sam sat at the table, eating pancakes and talking about their day ahead. But Jake knew the truth about what made his family special. The children had grown quickly in their first 2 years. Alex was now the size of a human 5-year-old with pale skin and bright blue eyes that seemed to see everything. Maya looked like a 4-year-old girl, but she moved with a grace that was not quite human. Sam was the smallest, about 3 years. Old in human terms, but his mind was sharp and curious. Lisa came downstairs, carrying her school bag. She worked at the local elementary school, but she had taken the summer off to spend more time with the children. Teaching human kids had prepared her for some things, but raising alien telepaths was completely different. "Alex, remember what we talked about," Lisa said gently. "When people visit today, keep your thoughts to yourself." Alex nodded seriously. The boy had learned to read minds without meaning to. He could feel the emotions and thoughts of everyone around him. At first, it had been overwhelming. He would cry when others were sad or laugh when they were happy, even if he did not know why. Jake and Lisa had spent months teaching him to build walls in his mind, to keep other people's feelings from flooding in. "I will be careful, Mom," Alex said. He had started calling them Mom and Dad naturally, which made Lisa's heart warm every time. Maya looked up from her pancakes. "The horses are worried about the storm coming tonight," she said. Matter dash of dash, Factly. Jake glanced out the window. The sky was clear and blue. The weather report had said nothing about storms, but Maya was never wrong about these things. She could talk to animals, though not with words. She felt their emotions and somehow understood what they were thinking. The farm animals loved her, and she spent hours sitting with them, sharing some kind of silent conversation. "I will check on them later," Jake promised. "Make sure they have extra hay." Sam was quietly moving his spoon around his plate without touching it. The spoon danced in circles, lifting pieces of pancake to his mouth. Jake and Lisa had learned not to react to this anymore. Sam's mind could move things just by thinking about them. It had been terrifying at first, especially when he was upset and every object in the room would start floating. But the boy was learning control. "Use your hands, Sam," Lisa reminded him gently. "Remember what we practiced." Sam sighed and picked up his spoon normally. He was the most challenging of the three children. His powers were stronger and harder. To hide, last month he had accidentally lifted the neighbor's truck when he got excited about seeing a butterfly. Luckily, old Mr. Peterson had been looking the other way. After breakfast, Jake went outside to work on the farm. The children followed him as they always did. They loved being outdoors, and Jake suspected it was because they felt more free to use their abilities away from the house. Alex ran ahead to check on the chickens. Jake watched as the boy stood very still among the birds, his eyes closed. The chickens gathered around him, calm and peaceful. Alex was learning to share his emotions with animals the way Maya shared thoughts with them. Together, the two older children had turned the Morrison farm into the most peaceful place for miles around. Maya went straight to the vegetable garden. She knelt between the rows of corn and placed her hands on the soil. Jake had watched her do this many times, but he still did not fully understand it. Somehow, Maya could feel the health of every plant on the farm. When crops were sick, she knew exactly what they needed. When bugs were about to attack, she warned Jake days in advance. Their farm produced more food than any other in the county, and people were starting to notice. Sam stayed close to Jake, helping with the simpler tasks. The boy was still learning to control his strength. Last week, he had accidentally broken a hammer handle just by gripping it too hard. Jake had started making tools specially for Sam, with extra padding and flexible handles. Around noon, a car pulled into their driveway. Jake's heart jumped. Visitors always made him nervous now. The children had learned to act more human around strangers, but they were still young and sometimes forgot Dr. Helen Carter stepped out of a government car. She was a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but she wore the serious expression of someone on official business. Jake had seen her around town a few times, but they had never spoken. "Mr. Morrison," she said, walking over to where Jake stood by the barn. "I'm Dr. Carter from the Department of Scientific Research." "I hope you don't mind me stopping by." Jake's mouth went dry. "What can I do for you?" "We've been tracking some unusual energy readings in this area," Dr. Carter said, pulling out a small device that beeped softly. "They seem to be coming from somewhere around your farm. Have you noticed anything strange lately?" "Strange how?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Before Dr. Carter could answer, Sam came running around the corner of the barn. He was chasing a butterfly, laughing and reaching for it with his hands. But the butterfly was flying in a perfect circle just above his head, as if it was attached to an invisible string. Dr. Carter stopped talking and stared. The butterfly was clearly not flying naturally. It was being controlled by something, moving in patterns that no insect could manage on its own. Sam noticed the strange woman watching him and suddenly remembered the rules. The butterfly dropped to the ground and flew away normally. Sam looked at Jake with wide, frightened eyes. "Interesting," Dr. Carter said quietly. She looked at her device, which was beeping much faster now. Mr. Morrison, I think we need to talk. Jake felt panic rising in his chest. This was what he had feared for. 2 years, discovery, questions, people who would want to take the children away and study them like lab animals. I don't know what you mean, Jake said. Dr. Carter smiled, but it was not a threatening smile. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm a scientist, not a soldier. I study things that can't be easily explained. And I think you have something very special on your farm. Alex and Maya appeared from different directions, drawn by the tension they could feel in the air. They stood close to Jake, protective and ready to run if needed. Dr. Carter looked at all 3 children carefully. They're not entirely human, are they? Jake opened his mouth to deny it, but Alex stepped forward. The boy looked directly at Dr. Carter, and somehow Jake knew that Alex was reading her mind. She's not going to hurt us, Alex said quietly. She's curious, but she's not mean. Dr. Carter's eyes widened. You can read thoughts. Sometimes, Alex admitted, when people think loud thoughts. And you, Dr. Carter said to Maya, you have some kind of connection to living things. Maya nodded shyly. Plants and animals talk. To me, not with words, but I understand them. Dr. Carter looked at Sam, who was hiding behind Jake's leg. What about you, little one? Sam peeked out and pointed at a small rock near Dr. Carter's feet. The rock rose into the air, floated in a gentle circle, and settled back down. Remarkable, Dr. Carter whispered. She put away her device and knelt down to Sam's level. You don't need to be afraid of me. I think what you can do is wonderful. Lisa had heard voices and came outside. She saw Dr. Carter talking to the children, and immediately moved to stand beside Jake. They faced the scientists together, ready to protect their family. How long have you known? Dr. Carter asked. 2 years, Jake said. Since the night they came to us, they came to you? Lisa looked at Jake and he nodded. They had always known this day might come. They had prepared for it, but they had hoped. It would never happen. There was a crash, Lisa said. During a storm, their parents were dying. They asked us to take care of the children. Dr. Carter stood slowly. Their parents were not human. No, Jake said simply. They were refugees from a war. They came here looking for safety. And you took them in. You've been raising them as your own? They are our own, Lisa said firmly. Whatever they are, wherever they came from, they're our children now. Dr. Carter was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the children, who were watching her with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Then she looked at Jake and Lisa, who stood like a wall between her and the kids. I need to know more, she said finally, about where they came from, about their abilities, about what this might mean for humanity. Are you going to take them away? Jake asked. No, Dr. Carter said quickly. I don't think separating them from the people who love them would be good for anyone. But I think there are things happening in the universe that you need to know about, things that might affect your children's future. Alex stepped forward again. She's telling the truth, he said. She wants to help us. Dr. Carter smiled at the boy. I do want to help, but I also need your help. There are questions that need answers. And I think your family might be more important than you realize. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the farm, Jake and Lisa realized that their quiet life was about to change again. The secret they had kept for 2 years was now shared with someone from the outside world. But maybe that was not entirely bad. Maybe it was time to learn what the children's arrival on Earth really meant. The 3 alien children stood between their human parents and the government scientist, longer hiding what they were. For the first time since that stormy night, Dr. Helen Carter returned to the Morrison farm 3 days later, carrying a large bag full of equipment. Jake and Lisa had spent those 3 days talking about whether they could trust her. The children had made the decision easier. Alex insisted that Dr. Carter had good intentions. Maya said the animals felt calm around her, and Sam had actually smiled when she left, which was rare for him around strangers. I brought some things that might help us understand the children better, Dr. Carter said, as she unpacked her bag on the kitchen table. "Nothing that will hurt them, I promise. Just some simple tests." Jake watched her pull out devices he did. "Not recognize? What kind of tests?" "I want to measure their brain activity when they use their abilities. I also want to scan their DNA to see how different they are from humans." Dr. Carter looked at the three children who were watching her. "With curious eyes, but only if you're comfortable with it." Alex stepped forward. "Will it help us understand why we're different?" "It might," Dr. Carter said honestly. "It might also help us understand what your people were running from that got everyone's attention." Lisa sat down at the table. "You think there's still danger?" "I don't know," Dr. Carter admitted, "but I've been studying reports from around the world. There have been other crashes, other sightings. Your children might not be the only refugees who made it to Earth." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Other children like ours?" "Possibly. Or other survivors who are older and more powerful." Dr. Carter pulled out a tablet and showed them a map covered in red dots. "These are all the places where my department has detected unusual energy readings in the past 2 years. Most of them are false alarms, but some are real." Maya looked at the map carefully. "Are they scared like we were?" "I think so," Dr. Carter said gently. "If they're anything like you, they're probably hiding and trying to blend in." Sam spoke up, which surprised everyone. He usually stayed quiet around Dr. Carter. "Can we talk to them?" Dr. Carter looked at Alex. "Can you sense other minds like yours?" Alex closed his eyes and concentrated. This was something he had been practicing in secret. Sometimes, late at night, he felt whispers in his mind that did not come from his family. They were faint and far away, but they felt familiar somehow. "Sometimes," Alex said slowly, "when I'm really quiet and listen hard, I can feel something. But it's not clear." "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say," Dr. Carter said, excitement creeping into her voice. "Alex, you might be able to connect with other survivors, but we need to be careful. If you can reach them, other things might be able to reach you." "Too," Lisa looked worried. "What kind of other things?" Dr. Carter hesitated. "The enemy that destroyed your children's homeworld. They might still be looking for refugees." The room went quiet. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders again. For 2 years, he had focused on keeping the children safe and hidden. Now he was learning that the danger might be bigger than he had imagined. "What do we do?" Jake asked. "First, we learn everything we can about the children's abilities," Dr. Carter said. "Then we try to contact other survivors. And then we prepare for whatever might be coming." Over the next several hours, Dr. Carter ran her tests. She attached sensors to the children's heads and watched her equipment as they used their powers. Alex concentrated on reading Dr. Carter's thoughts, making the machines beep and flash. Maya placed her hands on a potted plant and somehow made it grow faster, its leaves turning a deeper green. Sam lifted various objects around the room, making them dance in the air with perfect control. "Incredible," Dr. Carter murmured as she studied the results. "Your brain activity is completely different from humans when you use your abilities. It's like you're accessing parts of your mind that humans don't even have." "Is that bad?" Maya asked. "Not bad," Dr. Carter said. "Different, special. Your minds work in ways that could change everything we know about intelligence and consciousness." The DNA tests took longer, but the results were even more surprising. The children were not entirely alien. Somehow, their genetic structure had been modified to be more compatible with Earth's environment. "It's like your parents changed you before you were born," Dr. Carter explained. "They made you more human while keeping your natural abilities. That's why you can eat our food, breathe our air, and grow up alongside human children." Jake thought about the night the children had arrived. "Their parents showed us how to care for them. They must have known we'd need to hide them among humans." "They planned this very carefully," Dr. Carter agreed. "They wanted their children to have the best chance of survival, even if it meant changing them." That evening, Dr. Carter made a secure phone call to her department. Jake and Lisa could only hear her side of the conversation, but it was clear that she was reporting something important. Yes, sir, I'm certain, she said. 3 confirmed individuals with measurable psychic abilities. No, they're not dangerous. They're children being raised by a local family. I recommend immediate protective measures. Jake's heart sank. Protective measures sounded like government code for taking the children away, but Dr. Carter surprised him. I'm recommending that we leave them where they are, she continued. The family situation is stable, and moving them would likely be traumatic. Instead, I suggest we provide support and resources to help them develop safely. After she hung up, Dr. Carter turned to Jake and Lisa. My department is going to assign a protection detail to watch your farm. Not to spy on you, but to keep other people away. People who might not have the children's best interests at heart? What kind of people? Lisa asked. Military groups that see the children as weapons. Scientists who want to study them like lab rats. Foreign governments that might try to kidnap them. Dr. Carter's expression was serious. There are people who would do terrible things to get access to psychic abilities like theirs. Alex had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. Dr. Carter, can I show you something? She nodded, and Alex walked to the window. He closed his eyes and placed his hands on the glass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, images began to form in everyone's minds. They saw space, vast and dark and full of stars. They saw ships, thousands of them, moving through the void like a swarm of insects. The ships were black and angular, nothing like the smooth craft that had brought the children to Earth. These ships radiated menace and hunger. What are those? Dr. Carter whispered. The Dominion, Alex said, his voice strangely adult. The ones who destroyed our home. They're still out there, and they're looking for us. The images shifted, showing planets being attacked, civilizations falling, telepathic beings hunted and destroyed. The Dominion was not just an army. It was a force of destruction that sought to eliminate any species with psychic abilities. How do you know this? Jake asked. I've been dreaming about it, Alex said. We all have. The dreams are getting stronger. Maya nodded. Every night I see the dark ships. They're getting closer. Sam, who rarely spoke about serious things, looked up with frightened eyes. They're coming here. I can feel them. Dr. Carter stared at the children with new understanding. You're not just refugees, you're witnesses. You carry the memories of what the Dominion did to your people. That's why our parents sent us away, Alex said. Not just to keep us safe, but to warn others, to help them prepare for what's coming. The weight of this revelation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Jake and Lisa looked at their 3 children, seeing them in a new light. They were not just orphans who needed love and protection. They were the key to understanding humanity's greatest threat. How long do we have? Dr. Carter asked. Alex closed his eyes again, reaching out with his mind across the vast distances of space. I can feel them moving through the darkness. They're still far away, but they're coming. Maybe years, maybe less. Then we need to find the other survivors, Dr. Carter said. We need to learn everything we can about the Dominion. And we need to prepare Earth for a war unlike anything we've ever faced. Lisa put her arms around Maya and Sam, pulling them close. Whatever happens, we'll face it together as a family. Jake nodded, looking at Alex with pride and determination. These children chose us to protect them. Now it's our turn to help them protect everyone else. Dr. Carter began packing her equipment, but Jake could see her mind was already working. On the next steps, the quiet farm in Montana was about to become the center of humanity's defense against an enemy from the stars as night fell over the Morrison farm. The 3 alien children stood with their human parents, no longer hidden, no longer alone. The secret was out, and the real work was about to begin. Earth's survival might depend on the bond between these 5 people and the courage. They would need to face the darkness coming their way. The children's dreams that night were filled with images of other survivors scattered across the planet waiting to be found. The network was forming, and the first battle in humanity's war for survival was about to begin. 3 more years had passed, and the Morrison farm looked very different now. Hidden beneath the barn, Jake had built a training facility with Dr. Carter's help. The children needed a safe place to practice their growing abilities without being seen by satellites or curious neighbors. Alex was now 12 years old in human terms, but his mind was far more advanced. He sat in the underground training room, his eyes closed in deep concentration. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he reached out across the planet with his thoughts. Over the past year, he had made contact with 17 other Zephyrian survivors, scattered around the world. "I can feel Maria in Brazil," Alex said without opening his eyes. "She's scared." The local government found her foster family. Dr. Carter typed quickly on her laptop. She now spent most of her time coordinating with other scientists and military personnel who had been brought into their secret network. "I'll contact our people in South America. We can have her moved to safety within hours." Lisa watched her son with a mixture of pride and worry. Alex had grown into the role of coordinator for all the surviving Zephyrians, but the responsibility was taking its toll. He rarely smiled anymore, as she could see the weight of the world in his young eyes. Maya, now 11, was connected to a network of sensors that monitored the entire farm's ecosystem. She had learned to extend her abilities far beyond simple communication with animals. Now she could feel the health of the soil, the movement of underground water, even the subtle changes in the atmosphere that warned of approaching storms. "Something's wrong," Maya said suddenly, her eyes snapping open. "The earth feels different, like it's vibrating with fear." Jake looked up from the tactical display he was studying with Colonel Pete Jackson, Dr. Carter's military contact. "What kind of fear?" "Everything is scared," Maya said, standing up quickly. "The animals, the plants, even the rocks deep underground. Something bad is coming." Sam, now 8 years old, was practicing in the corner of the room. Objects floated around him in complex patterns as he learned to control his telekinetic abilities with precision. But when Maya spoke, everything crashed to the floor. "I feel it too," Sam said quietly. "It's like a shadow falling over everything." Alex's eyes flew open and he gasped. "The Dominion. They're at the edge of our solar system." The room erupted into activity. Dr. Carter was already on her radio, contacting observatories around the world. Colonel Jackson activated emergency protocols that would alert military bases across the planet. Jake and Lisa moved to their children, surrounding them with protective arms. "How long do we have?" Dr. Carter asked. Alex closed his eyes again, reaching out with his mind toward the approaching threat. What he found made him shudder. Their ships are huge, hundreds of them. "They'll reach Earth in 3 days. 3 days, Colonel Jackson repeated, grimly. Not much time to prepare for an invasion. Dr. Carter was already thinking ahead. "We've been preparing for 3 years. All the Zephyrian survivors are in safe locations. Our defense networks are ready. And the children have been training for this moment." Lisa tightened her grip on Maya's hand. "They're still just children." "Mom," Alex said gently, "we're not just children anymore. We're the bridge between humans and Zephyrians. We're the only ones who understand both species well enough to coordinate a defense." Jake felt his heart breaking. These were his kids, the babies he had carried from a crashed ship on a stormy night. Now they were talking about leading humanity into war against an alien empire. "There has to be another way," Jake said. "Something that doesn't put you three in danger." Maya stood up and walked to her father. At 11, she was tall and graceful, with an otherworldly beauty that reminded Jake of her alien heritage. But when she hugged him, she was still his little girl. "Dad, the Dominion doesn't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They destroy every telepathic species they find because they're afraid of minds they can't control." Maya looked up at him with eyes full of ancient wisdom. "If we don't stop them here, they'll destroy Earth and everyone on it." Sam joined the family hug, his small arms wrapping around Jake's waist. "We're strong because you and Mom taught us to be strong. You taught us that family protects family. And humanity is our family now," Alex added, standing and placing his hand on Jake's shoulder. "Every person on this planet is part of our family. Over the next 2 days, the Morrison farm became the command center for Earth's defense. Military leaders from around the world gathered in the underground facility. Scientists shared data about Dominion technology, and the Zephyrian survivors prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of two species Alex spent hours in. Telepathic contact with the other survivors, coordinating their abilities into a unified network. Sarah, a survivor in Japan, could manipulate electromagnetic fields. David in Australia could phase through solid matter. Each survivor had developed unique abilities based on their human upbringing and local environment. Maya worked with environmental scientists to turn Earth's natural systems into defensive weapons. She showed them how to trigger earthquakes along fault lines, how to redirect hurricanes toward enemy positions, and how to use the planet's magnetic field as a shield. Sam trained with military engineers, learning to use his telekinetic abilities on a massive scale. They discovered he could lift objects weighing hundreds of tons and move them with pinpoint accuracy. More importantly, he could teach other humans to focus their latent psychic abilities through mental exercises Jake and Lisa had taught him. On the morning of the third day, the Dominion fleet appeared in Earth's sky. Their ships were exactly as the children had seen in their dreams, black and angular, designed to inspire fear. There were over 300 vessels, each one the size of a city. The first communication came as a simple ultimatum broadcast on every frequency. Surrender all telepathic beings for processing, or your planet will be sterilized. World leaders had prepared their response. The President of the United States, speaking for all of humanity, delivered a message that Jake and Lisa had helped. Right, the beings you seek are not our prisoners. They are our children, our friends, our family. They came to us as refugees, and we welcome them with open arms. They have shared their gifts with us, and in return, we have shared our love with them. If you want to harm them, you will have to go through all of humanity. The Dominion's response was immediate. Energy beams lanced down from their ships, targeting major cities around the world. But Earth was ready. Alex linked his mind with every Zephyrian survivor on the planet, creating a telepathic network that spanned the globe. Through this network, they coordinated with human defenders who had learned to tap into their own psychic potential. Millions of minds working together created shields of pure thought that deflected the Dominion's weapons. Maya reached deep into the Earth's core, drawing on the planet's vast electromagnetic field. Aurora lights blazed across the sky as she turned the atmosphere itself into a weapon. Solar storms erupted from the sun, disrupted by her influence, sending waves of radiation that damaged Dominion. Electronics. Sam lifted entire mountains and hurled them at the invading ships. He showed human pilots how to use telekinetic force to make their aircraft move in impossible ways, dodging enemy fire while delivering devastating counterattacks. But the children's greatest weapon was not their individual abilities, it was what they had learned from Jake and Lisa about the power of love, sacrifice, and working together. Now, Alex said, linking his mind with every human and Zephyrian on the planet. Show them what we've learned about being a family. The moment that followed changed the course of galactic history. 7 billion human minds, guided by 17 Zephyrian survivors, joined together in a telepathic embrace that encompassed the entire planet. For the first time in their existence, the Dominion encountered something they could not understand or destroy. They felt love. They felt the bond between Jake and Lisa and their adopted children. They felt the sacrifice of human soldiers protecting alien refugees. They felt the courage of ordinary people standing up to an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds. And for the first time in millennia, the Dominion felt fear. Not fear of superior weapons or greater numbers, but fear of an enemy they could not comprehend. An enemy that grew stronger through connection rather than domination. The battle for Earth had begun, but it would not be won with weapons or technology. It would be won with the one thing the Dominion had never encountered in all their conquests: the uniquely human ability to love those who are different, and the uniquely Zephyrian gift of sharing minds and hearts across impossible distances. As Jake and Lisa watched their 3 children coordinate the defense of an entire world. They realized that everything had led to this moment. The stormy night, the crashed ship, the years of hiding and training, all of it had prepared them for humanity's greatest test. The children they had rescued were now rescuing everyone else. And they were doing it not as aliens or humans, but as something new, beings who carried the best of both species in their hearts. The Dominion fleet hung in Earth's sky like a dark storm cloud. For 3 hours, their massive ships had fired weapon after weapon at the planet below, but every attack was stopped by the combined will of humans and Zephyrians working together. The telepathic network that Alex had created was holding strong, but Jake could see the strain on his son's face. How much longer can they keep this up? Colonel Jackson asked, watching the energy readings from the overhead battle. Dr. Carter studied her instruments. The children are pushing themselves beyond their limits. If this goes on much longer, we could lose them. Lisa felt her heart clench. After all these years of protecting her children, she was being asked to watch them sacrifice themselves for the world. There has to be another way. Alex opened his eyes and looked at his human parents. At 15, he had grown tall and lean, with the ethereal beauty of his Zephyrian heritage, but the determined spirit Jake and Lisa had taught him. There's another way, but it's dangerous. More dangerous than this? Jake asked, gesturing at the tactical displays showing global warfare. The Dominion are afraid of telepathic connection because they've never experienced it, Alex explained. Their entire society is based on control and domination. They can't understand cooperation or love. Maya looked up from her position at the environmental controls. What if we could make them understand? Sam, now 11 and incredibly powerful, floated several damaged pieces of equipment around the room as he spoke. The only way to defeat them is to show them what they're missing, to make them feel what we feel. Dr. Carter's eyes widened. You want to force a telepathic connection with the entire Dominion fleet? Not force, Alex said. Invite. Show them what it means to be part of a family instead of a hierarchy. Colonel Jackson shook his head. That's impossible. There are millions of beings on those ships. Not impossible, Maya said quietly, just difficult. And it requires something the Dominion has never seen before. What? Lisa asked. Alex stood up and walked to his parents. It requires someone to volunteer to sacrifice everything for people they've never met. Someone who chooses love over fear, even when it might destroy them. And Jake understood immediately. His son was volunteering to link his mind directly with the Dominion command ship, to share every memory, every emotion, every moment of love he had experienced growing up human. It would either transform the enemy or burn out Alex's mind completely. No, Jake said firmly, I won't let you do that. Dad, Alex said gently, this is why we're here. This is why our parents sent us to Earth and why you and Mom chose to raise us. Not just to hide from the Dominion, but to show them a different way. Lisa was crying now, but she nodded slowly. If this is what you choose, we'll support you. But you don't go alone. What do you mean? Maya asked. Jake stepped forward. If you're going to share your memories with them, share all of them. Show them what it means to be raised by humans who love you. Let them feel what Lisa and I felt the night we found you. Dr. Carter looked confused. You can't link with the Dominion, you're not telepathic. Alex smiled, and for a moment he looked like the scared little boy Jake had carried from a crashed ship. They don't need to be telepathic. Love doesn't require special abilities, it just requires choice. The plan they developed was simple but terrifying. Alex would use the global telepathic network to reach out to the Dominion command ship. But instead of attacking or defending, he would share the story of his life on Earth, every moment of kindness. From Jake and Lisa, every lesson about compassion, sacrifice, and family. Every memory of what it meant to be different but accepted. Jake and Lisa would be connected to Alex during the attempt, their own memories and emotions flowing through the link. The Dominion would experience not just the thoughts of a telepathic alien, but the feelings of human parents who had chosen to love that alien as their own child. If this works, Dr. Carter said, it could change everything. Not just this battle, but the entire galaxy. And if it doesn't work? Colonel Jackson asked. Sam answered quietly. Then we keep fighting until there's no one left to fight. Alex took his position in the center of the telepathic array Dr. Carter had built. Jake and Lisa sat beside him, holding his hands. Maya and, Sam stood behind them, ready to add their strength to the connection. Remember, Alex said to his parents, think about love. Think about the moment you decided we were your children. Think about every time you chose to protect us instead of turning us away. Jake closed his eyes and remembered that stormy night 15 years ago, the alien ship in his wheat field. The dying parents begging him to save their children. The moment he and Lisa looked at 3 sleeping aliens and decided they were family. Lisa thought about reading bedtime stories to beings from another world, teaching them to tie their shoes, to ride bicycles, to say please and thank you, watching them grow from frightened refugees into confident young people who could save the world. Alex reached out with his mind, past Earth's atmosphere, past the human defenders, straight into the heart of the Dominion fleet. For a moment, there was resistance. The alien minds recoiled from contact, trained to reject any outside influence. Then Alex shared Jake's memory of carrying 3 alien children into his house while lightning split the sky. The Dominion felt the paramedics' determination to save lives, no matter what species those lives belonged to. He shared Lisa's memory of the first time Maya called her mom, the teacher's joy at being chosen as a parent by a child who could have easily rejected her. Human limitations. He shared his own memory of learning to control his telepathic abilities with Jake's patient guidance. The way his human father never feared his alien son's growing power, but instead taught him responsibility and compassion. The effect on the Dominion was immediate and devastating. For the first time in their species' history, they experienced unconditional love. They felt what it meant to be accepted despite differences, to be valued for who you were rather than what you could do. Across the fleet, Dominion soldiers stopped firing. Their commanders struggled to understand the flood of emotions pouring through the telepathic link. Love, sacrifice, forgiveness, hope, concepts they had no words for in their language. Alex shared Maya's connection to Earth's biosphere, showing them what it meant to care for a world instead of conquering it. He shared Sam's struggle to control his power, and the gentle way Jake and Lisa had taught him that strength without compassion was meaningless. But most importantly, he shared the moment every night when the Morrison family sat together at dinner. Human parents and alien children, talking about their day, sharing their hopes and fears. Being a family despite every difference between them, the Dominion fleet began to change. Ships stopped attacking and started communicating with each other in ways they had never used before. For the first time, they were sharing thoughts instead of orders, feelings instead of commands. The commander of the lead ship, a being who had conquered 50 worlds, found himself overwhelmed by Jake's memory of teaching Alex to throw a baseball. The simple joy of a father spending time with his son, not to train him for war, but just to share a moment of happiness. Across the fleet, the Dominion began to understand what they had been destroying for millennia. Not just telepathic species, but families, communities, bonds of love that transcended biology and species. The war ended not with weapons or destruction, but with understanding. The Dominion fleet powered down their weapons and requested permission to land. They wanted to learn more about this concept called family that had stopped their most powerful empire. Years later, Jake and Lisa sat on their porch watching their grandchildren play in the yard. Some were human, some were Zephyrian, and some were the first generation of human Zephyrian hybrids. They ran and laughed together, their differences making them stronger rather than dividing them. Alex had become Earth's first ambassador to the galactic community. Maya worked with scientists from dozens of species to heal planets damaged by war. Sam had established schools where young beings from across the galaxy learned to use their abilities for creation rather than destruction. Dr. Carter, now elderly but still curious, sat with them on the porch. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "That night you decided to take in 3 alien children?" Jake looked at his family, spread across the yard and the galaxy, united by love rather than blood. How could we regret the best decision we ever made? Lisa smiled, watching a human child teach a young Zephyrian how to ride a bicycle. We thought we were saving them. But they were saving all of us. The Dominion had become protectors instead of conquerors, spreading the gospel of family and cooperation throughout the galaxy. What had started with two humans choosing to love three alien children had become a revolution that changed the nature of galactic civilization. On quiet evenings, when the grandchildren were asleep and the stars were bright, Jake and Lisa would remember that stormy night when everything changed. They had been ordinary people living ordinary lives. But when faced with the choice between fear and love, they had chosen love, and that choice had saved the galaxy. The Morrison farm still stood in rural Montana, but it was no longer isolated. It had become a pilgrimage site for beings from across the stars who wanted to understand the power of family.